All right, so I put in the title, President Trump, we need your help. We need you to bring this to light, Mudfossils. Once it's in the open, you can walk away and do whatever you want. But once we have people discussing this openly and seeing these videos that I've been making for 10 years, and it's just denied. This is not right. Please stand up, sir. Okay, this is going to be fun. Another shocker du jour. What we're going to be looking at is this skin under the microscope. This is the fingertip. I've shown this hundreds and hundreds of times. 3 feet long from there to the very front. The fingernail is flawlessly intact. That's the pad that goes between the bone, the artery, the vein, and this is the piece that I broke off. Now, when I broke it off, it peeled right off, just as grip skin does. This is what it is. That's the pad that came off. That's what came off. But actually, I got really lucky, because not only did this come off just like this, it grabbed a piece of this here underneath. So there's one little spot where I have the underneath side. But in addition to that, I went down inside and got blood out of there. It wasn't as bloody as this, but it was pretty bloody. I mean, it was red pasty, as I recall. And I sent it off for DNA testing, and it was this is what's inside of fingertips. And like I say, I sent it off for DNA testing. It was 100% excellent quality DNA. It is not hard. These rocks are saturated with the blood. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this skin, which is right here. All right, this is that piece right here. You see? It's exactly the same. That's the sweat pores. And now, this piece comes off of here. Now, right somewhere in here, I have to find it, but a little chunk of there is right there. A little chunk of meat came along with it, which is the piece underneath. I believe this is. We're going to look at it in a microscope in a second, but I'm going to put some water on here. We're going to look at this, and I'll show you. There's a couple tiny little spots where you can see it requires a little bit of blood, or there might even be sweat pores. I don't know, but there's really no blood to speak of in this layer here. This is the skin. That's the skin on a guy's finger. That's pretty thick. It's 3 feet long, the fingertip. DNA tested, excellent quality DNA. All right, this is the grip skin right here, and it's broken, and I have a piece that we're going to look down at the side of it. So we're looking at the thickness of it right now, and that's what's up here in the microscope. Now let me turn these lights off. All right, now let me focus in a little bit and try to explain what we're looking at here. It's the skin. It's the cross section of the skin. All right, you see my fingers? I'm pinching the skin. That's the thickness of the skin. All right, it's that thickness right there. Now, we did get a little tiny bit of the meat from underneath. The skin stops about right here. So it's about this thick, which I don't know, that's 1/4 of an inch thick, a little more than that. Now, I'm going to put a little water in here, and you'll see it change. But you see the outside of the skin. I'm going to hold this up and do this freehand for 1 second, and just give you a good idea of the lay of the land here. Well, that's probably not doing too good. That's what the outside of the skin looks like. It's tough, man. It is like those little black spots. Those are like carborundum, I think. They're like tough. Hold on. Let me see if I can home in on that. You see that? This is grip skin. All that really gnarly little fabricy stuff, and these things here, they're tough. Those little black spots, whoa. And that's, I think it's like I say, carborundum or something. I think it's like about a 9 on the hardness scale. Very, very hard. Now this is the other side, the inside. It's like a scab. Now let me see if I can home in on that. I scratched it there a couple spots just to see. I'm going to go right there. You see it? It's just like a scab. Didn't break anything. It just lifted off. So anyway, it just glues down just exactly like you see there. Same thing. Now we're going to put a little water on it. Hold on. All right, so there it is. That's the thickness of the skin, and this is a little bit of the meaty tissue, which normally it separates right there. But that picked up a little bit. Now I'm going to put a little water on there and see how that affects what we see, because the water usually rehydrates very quickly, and then you can see the actual color of the tissues. I'll give it a second. It'll be shiny for a second or two. I'll dry that up a second. That's the only problem is, you know, sometimes a different lighting source is better too. Although in this case, I don't think so. Let's just dry it up. It'll only take a second or two here. Let me put this one back up. Well, I don't know how much of a benefit you're going to get by seeing this, but this is the tissue below. This right here is the actual skin, and it's tough. It is very tough. And that little red stuff right there is part of the fleshy stuff underneath the skin. This didn't do too good. Now, I'm wondering if I put some catalase right in this area. I can see some red looking blood there. Now, I'm going to come down close to it and see if I can get a catalase reaction on that. It looks to me like there's a little blood vessel there. Hold on. You know, I think I might be able to get a catalase reaction out of there, some of these areas here. I would say there's some kind of little blood vessel going on there. It looks like to me. I'm going to put a little hydrogen peroxide on there and see if we get a catalase response. Here goes. All right, catalase is an enzyme, and an enzyme is something that your body makes. And it's only in biological things, and it's in all biology. So it's in plants, it's in animals, it's in everywhere. And it reduces the oxygen. Now, if we see this thing foaming up somewhere, there's going to be a bunch of bubbles, which I'm not seeing yet. But it does take a little while to reactivate those enzymes. So let's give it a minute here. And again, this is from that giant fingertip. There's almost no blood in fingertips. And I'm not seeing much here, or anything to speak of that I would claim. No, I'm not seeing any bubbles. Well, actually, yep, I think I'm seeing them right there, but we're going to have to get right down close to see that, because that's going to be a little tiny membrane. I'm seeing there's a real fuzzy looking bubbles, and then there's the big bubbles. Now we got to be right on top of it to see the fuzzy bubbles. You see that? Well, I don't know. You see, you got to be careful because the light plays tricks on you too. But the kind of fuzzy bubbles I'm looking for is something along those lines, only you can see them bubbling out on membranes usually. Now, there's nothing I'm going to really claim here. Although I'm seeing a little action right there. Hold on. No, I'm really not seeing anything that I would claim as a reaction. You certainly want to see more than that. Yeah, there's no reactivity to speak of there at all. Although that might be a little bit something happened there. This is not, you can make no claim with this whatsoever. Okay, I found another spot, same fingerprint, and this one here, I'd be really surprised we don't get some kind of catalase action there. All right, so here we go. Now I'm way off it. Well, we should still see some bubbling, I would think. And I believe we are seeing that. And again, it should take a minute or maybe even 2 minutes or so to seep down inside, because the outside edge is going to be very little enzyme. But if it can seep down inside, I think we're getting stuff over here. Hold on, I'm going to come right down. Yep, there it is. There it is. That's catalase. And what it's doing, it's breaking off the extra oxygen. So I just found an area where there's still, you know, fresh enzymes. It's working, it's doing its job. And this whole area here is saturated with blood, you see it? Look at that, that's amazing. It's all over the place. This said it did have excellent quality DNA, as did the lung. I'll show you the lung too. But you see that? Isn't that amazing? Look at that baby bubble. And it'll do this all, you know, for a long, long time. Saturated with blood. Okay, we're going to get a little bit into the microscope and so forth and look at some samples. But before we do that, I want to tell you something. I am extremely proud to be virtually in the same room as Immanuel Velikovsky, who is my hero. Now, this is my hero, Immanuel Velikovsky. He wrote Worlds in Collision. He collected data from everywhere in the world, every culture, every library, every museum, every cultural center, spoke to all the people, the carvings on the walls, the statues, everything. Texts, scrolls. He was a close friend of Einstein's as well. This guy was not somebody who was nobody. They had to deal with him. I'm a nobody, they don't have to deal with me. Him they had to deal with, so they destroyed him. And here's what happened. He wrote Worlds in Collision, and it was 1950 the book was published. Now, the book postulates around the 15th century BC. That's between 14 and 1500 BC. All right, the planet Venus was ejected from Jupiter as a comet or comet-like object. It's as big as Earth. All right, Venus is just basically the same size as Earth. And it passed near Earth, very close. An actual collision is not mentioned. The object allegedly changed Earth's orbit and its axis and caused havoc, causing innumerable catastrophes that are mentioned in early mythology. Everybody had the flood story. Mythology. Everybody had the same story because it was a documented history, not mythology. All right? And they're all religions from around the world. It's always talking about religion. The book has been heavily criticized as a work of pseudoscience, him, and my stuff as well, and catastrophism, same thing with mine, and mythology. And many of its claims are completely rejected by the established scientific community, as with me, as they are not supported by any available evidence. I have all the evidence, but he was at a time that he did not have the evidence. I have it all now. It's all right here, funny. And now I am rejected because I can't speak. He could speak, but he was rejected because he didn't have the evidence to support his textual claims. I have his evidence, which is text and documentation and histories, to support my evidence, which is material evidence. I'm a material guy, and this is a material world. Now, this has not changed. Worlds in Collision was published in 1950 by Macmillan. Macmillan's interest in publishing it was encouraged by the knowledge that Velikovsky had obtained a promise from Gordon Atwater, director of Hayden Planetarium, for a sky show based on the book when it was published. So they're going to talk about it, discuss it. The book, Velikovsky's most criticized and controversial, was an instant New York Times bestseller because it was able to be seen, topping the charts for 11 weeks, #1, while being in the top 10 for 27 straight weeks. Despite the popularity, overwhelming rejection of its thesis by the scientific community forced Macmillan to stop publishing. They stopped publishing it. They transferred the book to Doubleday within 2 months, which is very unusual. And secondly, Doubleday was like a bubblegum type company compared to Macmillan. And by that time they had destroyed his credibility and made him look like an idiot. Carl Sagan attacked the hell out of him later. And whoops, hold on.
For might.
All right, sorry about that. What I was getting to was about Worlds in Collision and how he was destroyed. He was literally destroyed. They never turned back. And if you look him up now, it'll say he's a crazy guy, and just like it says here, all pseudoscience, no back, no support, nothing. All right, so they destroyed Velikovsky, but here's what he was talking about. In the preface, Velikovsky summarizes the arguments. He says, The Worlds in Collision is a book of wars in the celestial sphere that took place in historical times, written down, documented. The wars, the planet Earth participated. Earth was part of these wars. The historical cosmology story of this book is based in the evidence of historical texts of many people around the globe, on classical literature, epics of the northern races, sacred books of the peoples of the Orient, the Occident, traditions and folklores of primitive peoples, and old astronomical inscriptions and charts, on archaeological finds, and also on geological and paleontological material. And they would not let him present this. They just destroyed him. And he had all of this. It was based on all of that stuff. Now, the book proposes Venus formed inside Jupiter, and I will show you how it did, and that around 1500 or 15th century BC, it was ejected from Jupiter as a comet or comet-like object, subsequently passed near Earth, and it says an actual collision was not mentioned. In doing so, it changed Earth's orbits. We read this before, but we'll keep going. It caused innumerable catastrophes, and was identified in early mythology in all these documentations. Now listen to this. This is the key. 52 years later, all right, so in the middle 15th century, somewhere around there, or BC, and then 52 years later, it again made a close approach, stopping the Earth's rotation for a while and causing more catastrophes. All right, so bam, in the 15th century, 52 years later, not long after, another catastrophe. Then in the 8th and 7th centuries, Mars, they got knocked out of its orbit, was displaced by Venus, made close approaches to Earth. This incident caused a new round of disturbances and disasters. So we had 3 phases of disasters. After that, current celestial order was established, and everything sort of settled into their normal planetary spin. Now, can I show any evidence to support any of those statements? I think I can. Okay, here's the evidence. And stick around because we're going to get into the microscope shortly. I'm going to do some catalase tests and so forth. But here's what's going on. This is the Great Red Spot. And we've got Earth sitting on top of it, which is basically the same size as Venus. Now, you see this? They call this the Great Storm. This is not a storm. This is a bump. Venus Mons. It's a bump. And as the planet is spinning this way through the clouds, which are coming this way, that mound has to go through, and it swirls all that stuff off. This is not a storm. Not by any means. All right, so you say, well, what is it if it's not a storm? It's a mound, because that's what the Venus Mons is. It's the same mound that covers the vagina in a human. And this is the vagina. And this gave birth to Venus. Now, I'm going to show you something that's basically undeniable. First of all, you have all the architecture of this. Now, it's going to be pushed a little bit this way and that way because, yes, it's got to plow through all that stuff. But this is exactly the architecture. Now, this is the key that was the killer right here. First of all, you even have the hairline around here. You see this? See that? And this is all the exact same stuff, the labia minora and majora, which is the dense tissue up around the clitoris. You have the vaginal canal, and down here is the key, right there. That's the killer right there. You see that? Pay attention to that very carefully. You see that tab? And this is an actual picture of Mars. Of the Jupiter red spot. They sent a very close observer craft up there, and this is literally the picture. Now, that right there is the lock that locks the vagina into the body so that it doesn't get flopped around here and there. This is exactly what's going on. This is the Venus Mons, and that's plowing through that atmosphere, making the old cloud swirl. This is just what we saw before, the clitoris up here. And then you got the labia majora and the labia minora, the heavy stuff and the less heavy stuff. And you've got the hairline around here. And there's that tab right there. That is the key right there. For me, that makes it undeniable. And the ancient text said, in these words, the feared god Jupiter gave birth to the fiery comet, which ended up being Venus. And that is what the destroyer was that wiped out all of the giants on Earth. And it appears Jupiter was the god of this zone. He was also known as Zeus. And he must have sent Venus, birthed Venus, to avenge against all of the giants and wipe the Earth clean. And apparently they notified Noah ahead of time. And Noah's father in the ancient Greek and Roman was Prometheus. And these were the gods here on Earth. And Velikovsky talks about the battles in the heavens. Let me show you what the result of those battles are. All right, my friends, this is Comet 67P. They actually had a lander that landed down here, sampled the soils, and it is organic. I have the actual spectral analysis. This is the hip joint, and they break off right there. And it comes out here, and there's the hip joint. And here's what it looks like anatomically. You see, there's the ball, and it comes out here, and it has some tendons on it, and then it fractures right across here. I think I have one showing the fracture spots. Yeah, right there. This is what it is. Basically, they break in a couple of different places, somewhere in here and out here. This is what we have here with 67P. It's broken basically way out here, maybe even a little further out, actually quite a bit further out. Let's look at that again. But don't forget, that's the ball. It comes down. There's a little tendon on it here and there, and then it breaks off here. Remember the tendon? See here? See the little tendon stuff coming down? And the ball sits up in that socket, and it's broken off somewhere down around here. All right, so don't forget, this is where it's broken off, somewhere up around here. And you have these little tendons, and you have a little bundle of tendon coming off of here so that you can move this a little bit. So you need tendons, you need a little, there's not much muscle right up in this area because it's all just flexibility. And then you have the head, and then you have this connection here. I believe it's broken off right about there. All right, there's two situations going on here. We've got tendon down in here. We've also got blood that has to service this whole thing. And a lot of blood. There's a lot of blood in this area. There's one huge artery, and then there's a ton of little blood vessels that don't, because it doesn't take a lot of blood up in this area, but in where it meets the muscle and so forth, a lot of blood, and in the marrow of the bone. So let's look at this neck here. All right, this is from a different angle. They had that thing rotating around or taken from every shot, and it was right here. It was right next to it. Now, here is the tendons. Remember I showed you those tendons on there before? And there's a bundle of, it's either muscle or tendon. I would say that's tendon. And this is all of the bloody, dust from the dried up blood. And this is where it broke off up above here. But these are the patterns you want to think about here. Remember, see this circular pattern and these little pinchy bundles? Each one of those is a bundle probably of tendons, or rope-style tendons. And these are also the rope-style tendon, even though they're flat. They come out in flat sheets. There's a bunch of different styles of tendon. There's a real flat, thin sheets, then there's these flat, thick sheets, and then there's the rope-style bundle. So this is the middle size. All right, this is no tiny object out there. This is just that hip bone. And this is Raleigh, North Carolina. This is what it would look like on top of Raleigh, North Carolina. And this is what it would look like on top of, with the pyramid sitting on there. It's just one little tiny area in this. This thing is absolutely enormous. Wait till you see the blood supply. You see this? This is just unbelievable. All of these little balls, they call them dragon balls. Those are little tiny blood pores that are going in to service this when it was alive. Now, when the sun hits it just exactly right, it actually cooks. It must hit right at the very bottom, and it shoots out barbecue smoke. I mean, literally. And also where it hits the blood vessels. This is the main artery. Look at the size of this, 40 meters. I figured this about 160 meters from side to side. That's, figure 500 feet, somewhere around there. Now, again, watch what happens when it hits the sun in the exact correct way. Boom. Look at that, coming out of there. Now, this goes back to 2015. I alerted NASA and all them. I said, you guys got biology out here. And the same thing on Mars. Mars is saturated with biology. They just can't see it. They won't refuse to engage. Now, these are the little clamps that held this thing in position when it was in the body. These are the tiny little blood vessels that serviced up here towards the broken part of the bone. And then these are the little blood vessels coming out that service wherever they headed towards. They're not blowing off of here like dust. They're shooting up out of here as because they're being cooked. Now, why is this not cooking? Why is it only there? Because that's where the blood is. When you put a steak on a grill, that's what the smoke comes up from, is from the blood. The blood literally boiling off. And that's exactly what this does. And astronauts say space smells like steak. Now this is blood, right? Complete blood. So it is completely saturated with transition metals. And but it smells like blood, burning metals, and all that. And that's exactly what they say. When they take their spacesuits off after a walk and they say it smells like steak. You see this? On the other hand, those who traversed the International Space Station compared the smell to burnt steak. Space scientists have said that the source of the metallic burnt metal stink can be attributed to polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons found in charred foods on Earth. They routinely occur in outer space. Well, that's because it's saturated with body parts. All right, I have shown you undeniable evidence of body parts in space, and this is all written in all of the ancient texts. It's described as a result of Archangel Satan rebelling against God, turning Earth into a sex factory, and leading to a war between his followers and those still loyal to God, led by Archangel Michael. Within the New Testament, the war in heaven provides basis for the concept of the fallen angels and for Satan's banishment to Christian hell and to all the body parts in space. Okay, this is just an absolute stroke of luck. They had sent a lander up here to come down and go bang and just grab a handful of this stuff and bring it back to Earth. This is asteroid Bennu. Now, you see this structure, you see this structure, you see this over here. You see these little fibers coming down. Let's see if I can get you in a little closer on that. You see those? You may not be able to see those, but they are there. They have very, very good pictures. They were right there. They actually landed on here and grabbed a sample and came back. Now, what do you see here and what do you see there? Look at those carefully. That's a tube coming out of there. And that's a tube coming out of there down there. And you see these two different colors, right? They're two different tubes coming out of there, and this is a heart. That is a heart. And you say, oh, come on, Roger. I said, well, they went up and sampled the stuff off of here. I know exactly what's in that. And I have been predicting this since before they got back to Earth with this. And I know precisely what's in there. I have all the panels that it could be. It could be whole blood, it could be the serum blood, or it could be the plasma. Because they landed in one of these, and the blood is divided up. You see the different colors? You see the black and the red here? That's vein blood, artery blood, same down here. This is some kind of a tube. It's red, so I'm sure it's arterial, and that's black, so I'm sure that's a vein. Now, and these tubes are coming out of there. Those aren't craters. Now again, this is Bennu, and right there is where the tendon locks in. Now remember, the tendon, you have to anchor stuff. Muscle cannot do anything unless it's anchored. And here's how it got anchored, right there. That was what we just saw. And all this stuff had eroded away. And the tubes now, you're down inside where the valves are. All this gooey stuff is there so that it can sort of hold those tubes, and you can jiggle your heart around here and there without ripping it to shreds and ripping it out of the tubing. So that's sort of like a gluey substance. And now that's all gone, and we're down into the valves. And the valves are down in here. All right, so let's go back and look at that one more time. We're down in the valves. Otherwise, they'd have tubes coming, big tubes coming out of here. But that's all gone, and all we can see left is the white tendon that was locked in, so that the muscle could pull against this. Tendons just they're anchors. All right. So now, what do we see next here? This is a heart. That's it right there. We're looking into these valves. And then there's all kinds of little tubing here and there coming in and out of it. Valves have a lot of plumbing. And that's what we're seeing. Now, not only do we have this one, which is identical, basically, to the anatomical look, we also have this one here, Psyche, the same thing. Now, here's the beauty of this one. We can see it's almost all metal. You see, all this is all smelted metal. Now, somehow, that one there got really close to a very, very intense heat source. What? I don't know. But all of these little thinner parts have smelted and become basically iron. And you can see this thing has a tubing too. But it's smelted. Smelting just means it has to be so hot that all of the cheap molecules, the lower end molecules, give off, and you end up with metals. They just burn off. And that's what we have here. So this is the exact same thing as all of those right there. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. And here is the tendinous material right there. There's no question this is all biology. It's all biology. I can't find anything that isn't biology. And this is Umaru Maru. Take a look at that and think for a minute. Okay, they had some special meetings to try to figure out what could possibly make a structure like this into like an asteroid or a comet or a meteorite, whatever you want to call it. Well, I know exactly what this is, and it's very, very obvious what it is. This is a finger, a complete finger. That right there is the knuckle. All right? Going this way. This right here is the tendon, and it implants right here. You see all the little fibers going in there? Let me see if I can bring you up a little closer here. All right, you see the white? You can't miss it. That's the tendon. It anchors right here at the apical tuft. This peeling stuff, this peeling off, that's the grip skin. Showed them a million times. It's on the fingertips. It just peels right off. It's a separate layer on top of the actual meaty part of your fingertip. It's like a glove. All right, now check this out. Like I said, that's the grip skin. There's an apical tuft right up here, and here's one right here. And here it has a whole bunch of little balls in here. All these little holes. Whoops. All these little holes. And the balls attached to this strap. All right, and that strap runs down to the knuckle, right to this piece here. Now, what happens is that strap is like a band. You see that white band? But then it splits off into a bazillion little balls and straps. And those balls and straps lock into the bone right here, like this. You see them on the other side here? Like maybe this you can see better. You see here? That's where they lock into. And of course they lock into the one on the other side too. You see it? Right there is the hinge of your knuckle. All right, can you see that all right? I think you should be able to. Let me just turn this light on. Anyway, that's where that apical tuft is, right here, that little round spot that I showed you, and all the balls lock in. You know what, let me get a little closer for each one of these shots. All right, this, I'm going to point it out real careful. Right there, that circle right there is the apical tuft. These straps run off coming out of here, and they bundle together as one big flat cord that attaches to the, whoops, you can't see that far down, I don't think, no. But you can see the grip skin, and you can see the apical tuft. All right, now follow that down, 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 down to right there. You see that one going this way and this one coming that way? That's where the bones meet. All right, take your time, look at it. Look at it carefully. You see it? And these are the straps. The main strap is here, and it breaks off into all these little spots, and that's what locks it into this bone. There's a flare on the bone, and it locks it in. Same thing here. There's a flare on this one, and it locks it into all those little balls and these holes. Now, so that's the hinge to your finger. Now, go down a little further. Same stuff. We've got all of this tendinous material, but then it snaps right off here. All right, let me home in on that. So you should be able to understand what's happening here. It's just making its way down, and it was going to go right over the top of the knuckle down here, the big bump. But it snapped off right there. Now, so what are we looking at down at this end? All right, this is where the two major tendons come up over the top of, if you look at your hand, you got the same thing. They come up over the top of the finger. This is the bottom. Over the top is where these two tendons go. The underneath tendon is here. And it's just ripped right off. That is the vein, and that right there is the artery. Vein and artery to service this finger. All right, I think that's pretty obvious what I've shown you. If you take your time and look at it and just give it enough thought, and get an anatomical book. I mean, there's no way you can miss it if you just take your time and think. All right, this right here is that flare. And this would be underneath that tendon. The tendon would be laying right on top of here and locked in all these little balls right there. Of course, it would be like this. That's exactly what your finger looks like too, the bone. That's what it is. Okay, my friends, fortuitous. They just came back from Bennu with the sample, and they say the brief examination of it's been like 4 months. It contains plentiful amounts of water locked up in minerals like clays, which is nothing more than mud, which is nothing more than eroded flesh, and are also rich in carbon, nitrogen, sulfur, and phosphorus. Phosphorus is one of the most important things you have in your body. Now, I have the exact chemistry that will be. The exact chemistry, not just some of this and some of that, plentiful of this and some less of this, and so I will tell you the exact chemistry. All right, this is what they're going to find. 26 elements in whole blood and in plasma. These are all the different elements. Primarily, these are mostly up in the metals, because that's what they were looking for, metals. All right, there's going to be some other stuff in here, a lot of other stuff too. But primarily, this was a panel to discover what metals. Metallic profile. Now, what did they find? All of that stuff they were looking for, but there is a bunch of other stuff. But this should be the measure to show what they found. This is whole blood, and these are the exact what they are, and the quantities and measured concentrations in that type of blood. Now, where they took it from, that heart, I have no idea, but that's the whole blood. This is plasma, which is a different part of the blood. It doesn't have, I think it doesn't have the red blood cells in it, or it just has red blood cells, I don't know. But then there's the serum. And there's the serum. And they're all, this is very, very already done. They don't have to do anything at all. They just have to tell me what amounts of metals are in these samples. You know, they just grab a little pop of it off of one of the, I think they landed in one of the valves. One of these, I'm not sure, but when they hit it, they sunk way deep into it. They thought it was going to be solid. No, it's just nothing more than blood that has dried up, and they went right into it like it was sandy. Like, okay, my friends, I'm going to leave it at that. I have shown you things that are beyond the comprehension of anybody to even let their mind roam into that range. Look, this is Raleigh, North Carolina. This is a hip bone. These came through space. This is not something that's silly. This is all true. I've shown the blood boiling out of here. Space smells like steak. We have body parts coming into the Earth's atmosphere all the time. Here's a giant meteorite, iron meteorite. You see that spot right there? That's blood. This is the same as a meteorite here. And this has blood all in it too. But it didn't come through space. It didn't cook off. Although I do have one here that did come through space right here, and it's magnetic, and it came, like I say, it came through space. All right, that's the only reason they turn like iron. It's not magnetic. It attracts magnets because it's now smelted off, and you have to get up to like 2,500, 3,000 degrees to do that. Plus it has all architecture, and it has the latch on the bottom and everything, the latch that they all have. It has all the little alveoli holes, and it actually has catalase in it, which means that it was a biological body part on top of all the rest. And I don't see why the DNA wouldn't still be active if the catalase is, which is the enzyme. And you see that spot right there? You can see another little tiny red spot where the blood vessel went down inside there. It's just nothing but alveoli, and it came through and cooked everything off, and you have the metal left. When there's membranes like this, 6 feet thick, that are just forever they go. Now, this is an active site. My friend Tyson Carlson is working, Tyson's Mudfossil Adventures, and he's going out and looking at all these different anomalies, they would call them, which are, we can understand what they are because we've been looking into it. And here's what it is: bilipid membrane. It's as simple as that. There's no denying it. You can only just dismiss it and walk away and hide. There was giants in the earth, inside the earth in those days. These are the ones, these are the titans. Then after that, there was more giants, and they were the ones like Enoch talked about, and they were miles tall as well. But this thing is hundreds of miles, maybe even 1,000. I have no idea. These things are just so gigantic that the average human mind just cannot even let itself, melt into that realm. It just can't. It just is like a locked up ball of brain matter that just cannot get outside that to even think. People are seriously brainwashed. I mean, it's just incredible. I can't even, and the more intelligent they think they are, the more brainwashed they are, and the more arrogant they become. And it's just like, and all they can do is make fun and jokes because they can't, there's no way to, you can't dismiss this. If you look at it, it can't be done. So that's what we're up against, is people that have that mindset. They're just, I can't imagine them being that incompetent that they can't understand that after me showing these things for years and years and years. Same thing over and over and over. And I mean, I know a lot of people say, oh, you keep saying the same thing. Well, yes, until everybody else is at least questioning it, talking about it, it can be discussed. I can't say it once and then go away. That's what happens to everybody else. They just figure, well, I already said it. If they don't listen, they don't listen, and then they just give up. I don't do that. So stick around. I love you all. I want truth. And if President Trump is really honest about wanting truth and about wanting to look into God and Jesus and all the rest, if he has that honesty in him, there's no reason whatsoever that we shouldn't discuss this and have an open forum to discuss the reality of our past and the possibility of what is going to be our eternity, because we're all going to have one. And it appears to me you're not going to get out of it one way or the other. So you're going to be on the good side, you're going to be on the bad side. And right now, nobody has a clue about any of this stuff because it's been suppressed. All right, I love you all. We'll talk again. Donald Trump, please stand up, sir. Please stand up. You're the only hope we have. All they have to do is say, let's start looking into mud fossils. They appear to prove the Bible. And as far as I'm concerned, it does. And I see Jesus Christ as the only one who came here peacefully. And he says, find me and you'll be all right. I'm searching for him, I can tell you that.